Welcome to BBC News. A former Russian double agent is critically ill in hospital in Britain after apparently being overcome by an unknown substance. Sergei Skripal was found unconscious on a bench alongside a woman in Salisbury. Police declared a major incident and a local restaurant was closed as a precaution. Mark Urban has more.
Passers-by noticed two people, apparently unconscious, on a bench in Salisbury. The area was investigated by people in protective suits as suspicions built that the two victims had been poisoned. They were in Salisbury Hospital tonight, described as critically ill.
We are unable to ascertain whether or not a crime has taken place. A major incident, however, has been declared today and a multi-agency response has been coordinated.
The BBC established that the man being treated is Sergei Skripal. He was convicted by a court in Moscow in 2006 of being a spy for British intelligence. He was sent from the court to the Gulag, where he languished for 4 years. It was in 2010 that the arrest of a network of Russian agents in the United States provided an opportunity for MI6 to repay its debt to Skripal. The UK asked for his name to be added to a list of prisoners the CIA was putting together. And in July of that year, Skripal and 3 others were put on a jet from Moscow to Vienna. The 10 accused by the US of espionage, among them Anna Chapman, were flown from America, and in the best Cold War traditions, the two parties of spies crossed on the tarmac in Austria. Asked about who might have betrayed this American spy ring, President Putin vented his fury publicly.
Traitors will kick the bucket, trust me. These people betrayed their friends, their brothers in arms. Whatever they got in exchange for it, those 30 pieces of silver they were given, they will choke on them.
As for Skripal, he flew from Vienna to Britain, where he began a life in exile. Police were today securing the house in Salisbury, where the former Russian intelligence officer has lived in recent years.
That's Mark Urban reporting there. Well, earlier I spoke to Michael Waller, Vice President at the Centre for Security Policy. I asked him if any link is proved with the Russians, and that is a big if, would that be a pattern of behaviour?
Yes, it fits a pattern of state behavior, so we have to presume that it is part of that pattern. Vladimir Putin has a pattern going back to the 1990s of murdering his opponents, especially those who either investigated his crimes or who betrayed the secret police.
But this is slightly different, isn't it? There's norms in the espionage world that once a spy swap has taken place, nothing else happens after that. This would be an extraordinary breaking of precedent.
Right, and this is the really unusual part, because there is an honor code among spies, and once you exchange spies in a swap, then they're not fair game anymore. You have to leave them alone. This changes the game completely, and it has serious ramifications for everyone in the West.
And you've had colleagues who, in your opinion, have been caught up in this kind of activity, the Russian state taking actions beyond its borders.
Yes, well, 2 of my colleagues on my editorial board were assassinated in Russia for investigating Putin and the crimes relating to Putin and the secret police. And then a colleague of mine in Maryland in the US was shot twice, after he first accused Putin of assassinating Litvinenko in London in 2006.
And of course, the Russian authorities, I'm sure, would have a different version of event from what you're putting forward there. But on a wider point, what do you think it would take to stop Russia taking actions beyond its borders, as it did, for example, allegedly in the Litvinenko case?
Well, in the case of Vladimir Putin, he's a creature of the secret police. He calls it the Holy of Holies. He speaks about it in supernatural terms, almost. And as you had in your earlier clip there, he publicly said that the people who betray those services will be killed. So we have to take him very seriously, and I think that part of the problem is that we in the West have been very weak toward Vladimir Putin and his regime, and in so doing we invite these kinds of atrocities against either us or people who come to trust us.
Okay, well, I put to you then, what response can countries in the West have to incidents like this?
I think as a start, we should begin, say, WikiLeaks style, by exposing all of the organized corruption around Putin and how he's ripped off the Russian people and the Russian state. After all, the presidential elections in Russia are just over a week away, and Putin needs to be shown that he's a gangster leading a gangster regime, and so far he knows the West is going to protect all of his dirty deals.
But how difficult are investigations like this? So the British police, as I said, are at extremely early stages in this specific case, but you have personal experience of just how difficult it is to get to the bottom of what actually happens in cases like this.
That's right. In the cases of my two colleagues in Russia, they were never adequately solved. A total of 11 people who I either knew or worked with in Russia have been assassinated in the course of investigating Putin or running afoul of him one way or another. And in the case of my friend in Maryland, his case was never solved either. So they're extremely difficult to prove.
That was Michael Waller speaking to me a little earlier.